With the year-end approaching fast, I decided to sum up some of the worst and best car trends and tech which I encountered in 2023. Ladies and gentlemen, warm up your keyboards. I'll start with the stuff that drove me mad. And number one on this list is ISA, or Intelligent Speed Assistant. It's an audible warning informing that you've exceeded the speed limit. And it's mandatory on all new generations of cars currently sold in the EU, and it'll soon be mandatory on all new cars sold here. Unfortunately, I have to interact with the infotainment system constantly to disable ISA, or the Intelligent Speed Assist. ISA is an audible warning that beeps every time you exceed the speed limit, and it drives me crazy. As of recently, this system is mandatory in all new cars sold in Europe. While some brands like BMW made it possible to disable ISA with just one button, in Honda you have to click through the vehicle settings, only available when parked, and turn off the sign recognition system entirely. That's the only way to get rid of ISA on this model, and you have to do it every time you restart the vehicle. Or turn up the radio or drive according to the speed limit, which I applaud, but try driving 10 km per hour in a supermarket lot. Other drivers will lynch you. For years, I was an advocate for new safety tech and driver assistance systems, which, when implemented right, improved safety and made driving less stressful. However, ISA is a step too far. Another step too far is putting everything on touchscreens, like opening of the roof in the Mercedes-AMG SL63. The central display has adjustable tilt angle, using a virtual slider of course. The variable tilt angle is supposed to keep the sun from reflecting in the screen, and it works. Opening and closing the roof is also done on the display. It is only possible after the car is turned on and the system loads, which can take 30 to 40 seconds. So, pro tip, if you parked your car with the open roof and it starts to rain, don't try closing the roof from the inside, just press and hold the lock button on the remote control. You have to stand close to the car though. First world problems, you say? Fair enough, but it doesn't have to be a 200k euro roadster. Have a look at this working man's pickup truck. This is touch-controlled AC in the VW Amarok. Like Ford, also VW has this large vertical display, but Ford left knobs for climate control, while Volkswagen only has a volume knob and a few shortcut buttons. But in order to set the temperature, you have to use the touchscreen interface, which leads to situations like this. Sure, you turn the car off for a couple of minutes and everything is back to normal, but it's clear VW still has software issues. I don't think I've done a review of a recent BMW in which I haven't mentioned how terrible the OS 8 is. BMW's current infotainment system also takes most functions to the screen, and now it also features games. The Chinese are very good at writing software and adding fun features to their cars, like games and, karaoke. This is something European car bosses couldn't wrap their heads around, and apparently the customers wanted their fun and games. And now you can play games in the BMW i5, for example, while you're waiting for the car to charge. Just scan a QR code and your smartphone turns into a game controller. Some games are single and some are multiplayer. Unfortunately, loading takes so long that on a fast charger you'll be ready to go before you start playing. And I'm sure BMW will blame it on something like poor coverage, which they have no control over, but with all due respect, I'm buying the car from BMW, not from a telecom operator. Maybe they should have just gone with karaoke? This is in the same league as Tesla's remote farting feature.
What is it about Tesla that it has so many die-hard fans and quite a few opponents?
You know what pisses me off about EVs? Well, actually the list is very long, but one of my pet peeves is performance with fine print. For example, in order to get the claimed acceleration figures, the battery needs to have a specific state of charge and be up to temperature. And I get it. Internal combustion engine cars also need to be up to working temperature, but in EVs, meeting some of the criteria may be difficult during several months of the year. Other than the Porsche Taycan and the Audi e-tron GT, the Volkswagen Group's EVs are not very engaging to drive, and the promised performance is available only in a very specific situation. I first experienced this in the Cupra Born, which I also reviewed in the winter. When I measured the acceleration, it turned out that I was more than a second short of the result proudly advertised in the specification and the brochures. That's because in fine print it also said that the temperature of the traction battery must be between 23 and 50 degrees and the battery charge level must exceed 80%. With that said, Volkswagen does not recommend charging the battery above 80% every day. I reviewed the ID.5 GTX in the summer and recorded the acceleration runs at sunrise, so most likely the battery was within the recommended temperature range and the charge level was sufficient, but I'm driving the Enyaq RS in the winter and I also fell short of the claimed result by more than half a second. So, with the exception of two very expensive sports cars, the Volkswagen Group EVs are not performance-oriented. They also don't handle great, as the GTX was understeery, and during my time with the Enyaq RS, the roads were mostly slippery, so I preferred not to check how far I would go into the woods before the car stopped. While we're on the subject of EVs, lack of frunks is something I cannot fathom. I couldn't deny myself the pleasure of peeking under the bonnet of the i5 eDrive 40, where you mainly see a big plastic cover. And under that cover is a big hole. And I get it, this is where the second electric motor lives in the M60 xDrive, but was it really impossible to add a shallow plastic tray for charging cables like in the Kia EV6? It's also all-wheel drive, and the performance variant gives the M60 xDrive a run for its money. Instead, the cables end up in a compartment under the boot floor. Why is this a problem, and why carry cables with you at all? Let me start with the latter. Not all AC chargers or stations have a cable attached to it, so if you have a couple of hours to kill on the road, AC charging makes sense, especially if you go out for lunch or something. Now, let's expand on this scenario. Imagine you're on a business trip, maybe visiting clients across the region, and in the boot you have, I don't know, luggage. You pull up in front of a client's office and there are charging outlets but no cable. So now you have to pull out some of your luggage to access the cable, and this is an optimistic scenario in which it is not raining. And I understand that the German car makers see the open bonnet only as a sign of a breakdown, but have some faith in your product. And now my favorite lever that does nothing. This is the Techno Esprit Alpine, or Alpine Spirit trim level, which for Renault is like the M package for BMW. This means some Alcantara and blue stitching here and there. Alcantara is stain resistant, which may explain the use of it on the dash in front of the passenger, but using it at the bottom of the steering wheel is a bit of a head scratcher. However, everything becomes clear when we get to the pièce de résistance of Renault Austral's interior, which is the lever that does nothing. At first I thought it was the automatic transmission lever, but no. The gear selector is the third stalk on the right side of the steering wheel. Yes, there is the gear selector, the wiper stalk, and the media controller, all squeezed behind the steering wheel here on the right, like in the Renault Megane. And now let's picture a Renault driver holding the bottom of the steering wheel, like so, with their left hand, and with the right hand resting on the lever. They're just casually ashing a cigarette into a coffee cup, a low coffee cup that does not obstruct this lever's movement, because the lever that does nothing actually slides, obstructing the cup holders, and then revealing some extra storage compartment here, which could have
just been covered by maybe, I don't know, a sliding armrest. Instead, we have a lever sounding like a rotary bezel on a watch, but at least a rotary bezel on a watch indicates something, and this lever does nothing. It's just here, but if you opt for a manual transmission, it disappears.
I guess Tesla remote farting feature is more useful. And here I'll segue into the things I liked this year, and taking us there is the SsangYong Taurus, which has some features which pretend to be something that they are not.
For example, the radiator grille. Well, actually, it's not the radiator grille because the grille is lower. But between the headlights, there is an imitation of the radiator grille with 6 slots. If there were 7 of them, Jeep's lawyers would be probably sending out lawsuits because that would be the Jeep trademark.
This red element is a reference to the red towing hooks on Jeeps. On the Taurus, it's simply a plastic cover under which you screw in an ordinary tow hook. The loops on the bonnet are also very Jeep-like. In Wranglers, they are used to secure the folded down windshield. Here, nothing falls down, so they seem to have no use, but I heard some accessories like light bars can be attached to it.
From the side is a bit of Land Rover Defender, a bit of Toyota FJ Cruiser. The overall silhouette on the side is somewhere between the two models, but the flattened wheel arches are more Defender. The blades on the C-pillars are also reminiscent of both models, but in the Defender you can order like this optional side gearbox here, and there's an optional box like that for the Taurus as well. And the wing mirrors. Now the housings are massive like on the FJ Cruiser or even the Hummer H3. I'm sure I've seen this somewhere else. Let me know in the comments below if you've seen them somewhere as well.
Moving on to the rear, where there's also a lot going on. Now, the tailgate is asymmetrical, like in the Land Rover Discovery, and a spare wheel hanging from the tailgate is a hallmark of a true off-roader. Over time, some brands have begun to use wheel covers, in some cases even hardshell covers, but there is nothing under this bulge here. There's a handle that suggests the tailgate opens to the side, like on a Defender or an FJ Cruiser or maybe a Wrangler. Instead, it flips up. Fake or not, all these design elements make a coherent car, and I like the Taurus for what it looks like. And speaking of cars I like, the BMW XM takes the top place for everything it stands for. Screw the economically challenged.
I'ma keep winning. I'ma keep winning. You can try to save yourself, but you wanna go play yourself. You can try to save yourself, but you wanna go play yourself. You can try to save yourself.
Cars today are all about software and digital experience, and the only car company that seems to have a grip on this is Tesla. This year was my first time I ever spent some more time with a Tesla. It's an iPhone. I don't want it, but I can appreciate how good it is.
Tesla's infotainment system actually works and is surprisingly logical and easy to use. I say this from a perspective of a person who literally had a couple of hours experience over a decade with Tesla's infotainment. For comparison, I have many months of experience with VW's current infotainment, and I still think it's shite.
I mentioned I dislike how EVs cut performance, for example, because it's cold and slippery. Do you know what Porsche has to say about that? The last couple of days it was mostly snowing, the temperature was below freezing, and with 480 horsepower, even with all-wheel drive and traction control, this can end badly. In the snow, the 911 spins round like a record, which is a lot of fun, but also tells us very little about the dynamics.
I had to find a black, let's say, patch of tarmac to do my 0 to 100 km/h test run. So let's pause here and you tell me in the comments below, what do you think this car will do? In the winter, in the wet, the Porsche 911 Targa 4 GTS should do 0 to 100 km/h in 3.5 seconds with PDK, which this one has. Ladies and gentlemen, place your bets while I activate the launch control. Okay. 2.6 seconds. Porsche defies the laws of physics. This should not be possible. This is the kind of acceleration where you just get tunnel vision. It's just road ahead and everything else is a blur. Wow.
And this is what true motoring is all about. But we also love cars for design, so something that doesn't look like a Tesla. This year I reviewed some interesting and beautiful looking cars. I would like to point out these two for their modern and striking design. I rarely talk about the looks of a car because you can see and judge the beauty shots, but the Peugeot 408 deserves a special mention. There's something going on from every angle. There are bits popping out, lines cutting across, 3D radiator grille, flat rear window with two ailerons. This car deserves to be admired from a distance and then from up close.
The new Prius looks modern without looking weird.
I really like the boomerang-shaped headlights, the undercut sills, the light bar running across the tailgate, or those pinstripes that reflect on the glossy panel and add texture to the rear. The shark fin antenna is integrated into the roof panel just behind the solar roof. Yes, solar roof. More about that when we hit the road. And there's an alternative to the all-controlling touchscreens. Nissan has launched a car which still has many physical controls.
Piano black is limited only to a few surfaces, few details, and there are physical controls that make me feel comfortable, more comfortable than touchscreens. Seat heating, click. Steering wheel heating, click. Windscreen heating, click. Set the temperature for the rear seats, click. Now, a word of advice to other car makers who want to push subscription for features. A customer buying a car in a certain class expects certain features, and forcing them to pay extra for them at the configuration stage or as part of a later subscription may look good at first in quarterly reports, but not when the customer leaves the showroom on foot.
While we're unlikely to escape electrification of cars, I think we should be given a choice of which type of electrified powertrain suits our needs. Plug-in hybrids these days can cover 60-70 kilometers on a single charge, which is enough for most people. And Toyota Lexus PHEVs are really good.
In Europe, the Prius is only available as a plug-in hybrid with a 3.3 kilowatt onboard charger. You can top up the 13.6 kilowatt-hour traction battery from an electric outlet in about 4 hours. Toyota claims that this is enough to drive more than 80 kilometers in pure EV mode if the car is equipped with 17-inch rims, and on 19s like this one the range should be around 70 kilometers, and in the summer this is a realistic claim.
Interestingly, as in the new Lexus plug-in hybrids, also the Prius starts in electric mode by default and stays there until the main traction battery is depleted or the driver turns the hybrid mode on. This means that in electric mode the car can reach even the top speed of 177 km per hour. All you need is easy access to regular cheap charging infrastructure, otherwise you're just pointlessly carrying empty batteries around. And the last thing I really appreciate is old school motoring. There's going to be less of this in the coming years as models are going out of production for not meeting emissions or safety standards.
As I was leaving the Toyota's press office in the GR86, I muttered under my what I thought about the interior design. We'll come back to that later. But as soon as the barrier dropped behind me and I entered the first roundabout, I forgot all about the inconveniences and I began to plan my route home so as to cross as many roundabouts as possible.
And what moved you in the world of cars in 2023? Something positive, or maybe something really annoyed you? And if you're watching this a few years later, what's getting your attention now? Let me know in the comment section. below. Links to all the cars I mentioned here are in the video description. All the best this holiday season, and Happy New Year! If you like my sarcastic, down-to-earth and possibly mildly amusing car reviews, join me every Friday at 3 p.m. Central European Time, and don't forget to subscribe and like this video as it helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Thanks for watching, and I will see you in the next one.